Psalms, different Psalms just keep coming to me. And so this is on the household of God. And so I want to start this time with a psalm about this, because what household emphasizes is this one word, belonging. It emphasizes belonging, and there should be a sense in the believer when you begin to believe in the Lord, like you belong. And if you think about what we talked about with the flock, maybe the word for flock is shepherd. Why are we in the same flock? Because we have the same, each of us has the same shepherd. And so, we're together because of the shepherd. And then if you think about the church, what is special about the church? Well, if you remember especially from class 2, the church assembles. So what's special about the church, as our together aspect is like it assembles. And so we assemble. And then what is special about the word household? And it's this word, it's belonging. There's just a sense that you are together and you belong there. And I'm going to read Psalm 84, verses 1 through 3, and talk about birds. It says this: "How lovely are your dwelling places, O Lord of hosts. My soul longed and even yearned for the courts of the Lord. My heart and my flesh sing for joy to the living God." And then this verse: "The bird also has found a house, and the swallow a nest for herself, where she may lay her young, even your altars, O Lord of hosts, my King and my God." And the psalm is about the dwelling places of God. And then, it brings up these, the bird and the swallow. And some versions say sparrow and swallow. Those are very small birds. They're not like eagles or vultures. These are other birds. Pelicans. These are other birds mentioned in the Bible. But these birds are small birds. And you know what they found? They found a home. And you know what the household is? It's like a place of a home. And it's a place where you belong. And you could just imagine that all of us are like little birds just flitting around. We're not eagles, we're not pelicans, we're just swallows or sparrows. And what does the household of God say? It's like you belong here. And that should be a common experience of a believer. It's like I belong with these people. I belong in the household. And so the opening verse for this whole picture is from Ephesians chapter 2. And I'm just really going to emphasize verse 19 here. And I'll read it to you. "So then you are no longer strangers and aliens, but you are fellow citizens with the saints and are of God's household." And, it's talking about once a person becomes a believer. And what this verse says is like, you're no longer strangers and aliens. Now, these two words they're kind of simple, and you have to think about like what the context of these words are. A stranger is this: somebody you don't know. You don't know. And the context of this word stranger is that you are a stranger to what is of God, or to like what's going on in what we'll say as the household or the kingdom and the fellow citizens. Like you're just a stranger. Like you don't know it. Like people, and then before you become a believer, maybe somebody talks about Christ or talks about something of the Bible, and then you just have a sense of like, I don't know that. You're a stranger. And then, sometimes two people talk, and then one thinks the other one is a Christian, and then you're talking, and then the Christian, the one who really is a Christian, is saying like, "Oh, the Lord led me," or, "Oh, I feel such peace from the Lord." And then the other one just I just don't know what you're talking about. I don't know, like I'm not on the same wavelength. One time, somebody was like, well, this was a brother and sister dating, not brother and sister. One of the people was a believer, the other one was not. And then, then the believer was like, hey, let's go, let's do something more for the Lord. And then the unbeliever was like, oh, we did that already. It's Sunday. We did that already. Like we don't, and then it's just like you're just a stranger to that kind of life. You're a stranger to that kind of life. And then alien means just like you're in a foreign country. You're a stranger means you don't know. And an alien means like you're living in a country that is not your own. And I believe even on this Zoom call, we have a number of people who are living in a country that is not their own. And that's what this word means. It's like you're just like, I'm just not, I don't remember my mom's food, or I remember my mom's food, but I don't have my mom's food. I'm not sleeping in my same kind of bed. When I go out of the room, out of my house, the streets don't look the same. This is not like what I grew up in. And because I am living in a country that is not my own. And this verse says this, that's no longer, you're no longer, you're no longer, you're no longer unknown. And you're no longer an alien living in a country that's not your own, but your fellow citizens. We're not going to talk about that tonight, but you are of God's household. And that means like there's a place where you belong. And we'll see how there's like moms and dads and brothers and sisters and, a lot of different people in the household. But it's not just the people that are there. It's like you have a belonging. And why do you have a belonging? Is because you share the same life, you share the same faith experience, and you're believers together, and you're not alone. That is the household of God. And then I want to bring you into like the forest a little bit because I'm a little bit in the forest with this. And so I just want to like put this up there so we can think about it. And I honestly don't really have the answer. But there are these two Greek words. One is household, and then I'll say that Greek word, okiu, versus house, which is oikos. And so there's the household, and then there's the house. And there are two different Greek words. And whenever I see that there are two different Greek words, I say this, there must be some difference there. But then what that difference is, I'm not quite sure, and I don't know if I have a conclusion. It's like a household is not a house. I wouldn't say that. Or a house is not a household. I wouldn't say that. They're related words, but they're different. So so I'll just read this from Vines. It's a dictionary. Or oikios, which is household, primarily signifies of or belonging to a house, like of one's household or a kindred. And so it's like, these are my people. I belong here. I really belong here. I am of the same kind of source. I have the same experiences, and I belong to a household. And then there's the Greek word oikos, which means like a house. It means like the actual structure or dwelling. And we'll see that we're members of a household of God, but we're also that actual like dwelling place. We are the house. And there's kind of a difference. And what I like about the difference, although I don't know if it's like really there, but I like to think it's there, is this. Being a house is kind of like, we need to be the walls, the stones. We're going to talk about the stones, and we have to do things, and then because we have to contain the Lord, it's a dwelling place of God. We're the house of God, and we'll see how the house kind of emphasizes that sort of like functionality. But then I like the word oikios, which is household, because it's not so much of the functionality. It's more like this. Hey, you belong. You're just one of us. You're just one of us. You're just that's the thing. Like you're just here. And then, I'm so glad that my children were raised in a church life environment, because when they were growing up, they met so many different kinds of people, all kinds of different people, because like in the church, there's just like, oh, there's so many different people. Like, Betty Kent is here, and then I could ask Betty, have you met a lot of different people from the church? And then, like, have you met people that are not like you from the church? You know, um, I was never in jail, but I know people that are out of jail. And they're in the church. Praise the Lord. I met, like I met people that are just all kinds of different educated people, very educated people, all kinds of, and then what a oikios means is like, you're not a stranger, you're not an alien, but you're just a member. You're just of the household. And if you go back to this verse, I like it. Some versions say, and are members of God's household. But there's no word in the Greek for members. You know what the word is? It's just of God's household. It's just like you just belong. You're a part of it here. And so this is like only used 3 times in the whole Bible, this Greek word, oikios, household. And so the first is at the bottom of the list. We've already read that one. And then I'll do the one at the top of the list. If anyone does not provide for his own, especially for those of his household, then he has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. And so, like, it's just like, this is my family. This is I could call you if I'm talking about a household, I could call you my own. And then I could call you the member of my household. And then what should I do? I should take care of you like a family. And then so that while we have opportunity, let us do good to all people, Paul tells the Galatians, and especially to those who are of the household of the faith. Hey, you believe. Huh. That means you belong. that means you belong. And then I look at a person, they could have a lot of problems, they could have a lot of issues, but there's like that seed of faith, even like a faith like a mustard seed. And you just realize, like, if they have that faith of that mustard seed, then they're gonna overcome certain things the same way I am overcoming certain things. And you know what? We belong. We're of the same household. Now the house, then, on that side, it really emphasizes the dwelling. And so, these verses, I'll just read, and then we'll talk about them a little bit more. Christ was faithful as a son over his house, whose house we are. So, like, we are the house. It's not, if I would write the Bible, I would say Christ was faithful as a son over his house, and we also live in that house. But it doesn't say, and we also live in that house. It's like, we are the house. And then 1 Peter, you also, as living stones, are being built up as a spiritual house. And then, and you ask, what is this house? It's actually the church. 1 Timothy 3:15, conduct yourself. You will know how one ought to conduct himself in the house of God. And then the translators of the New American Standard translate that household, but it's actually not the Greek word household that we were making a differentiation of. It's actually the Greek word house. So it's like in the house of God. And you know what that house is? It's the church of the living God. And so, somehow this house should be this. It should be, or the church should be this. It should be a house. And and then I'm gonna switch a little bit to like from belonging, which has a lot of warm feelings, like you just belong. And then this is more like what it is to be a house, because it's something to be with your relatives and just say, like, I just belong. You know, my mom is interested in the smallest things in my life. If we get new curtains, she's kind of interested in that. Why? Because she's my mom. She's just like, it's like we belong, and if I would tell you, hey, I got new curtains, you'll be like, next, what, Rex, what? But my mom is interested. So it's like a belonging. But then the house is a little more like there's that belonging, but there's also like we're gonna do something, and we want to experience that. And then I'd like to like look at this quote by T. Austin Sparks, because some people can't experience that. They're like, I'm a Christian and I know I'm a Christian, I know I'm a believer, but I just feel really alone. I feel like I'm on my own. And then I think then it's like there is the truth of the Bible that you are the house. But then your experience is just like, I don't feel that. I do not feel that way. And then I feel like this Sparks quote is good because it talks about active relatedness. The house of God is the recognized and active relatedness of believers. It is not a nebulous thing. It's not an abstract idea. The spiritual relatedness of believers is very wonderful, but there must be a recognition of it, and that relatedness must be made an active thing. That is the house of God. Then the house of God represents a greater measure of Christ than is possible to any number of separate individuals. Separate individuals can never come to the Lord's fullness. It will necessitate all the believers for the Lord's fullness to be entered into. But to come to it, believers must needs be in relatedness. And I really like this. Like, am I the house? Well, yeah, like I'm of the household. That's what Ephesians says. But then do I like touch that, or do I experience that? You know what it's a matter of? Like active relatedness. And I would say like a lot of Christians look for this. I was with a brother, and we were having this really nice breakfast at a really nice restaurant for breakfast. And then and then he's like, Rex, I'm just trying to find like a, somebody who would be like kind of like at my level, seeking the Lord in the same way that I am seeking the Lord. And it was like there was a longing in there for active relatedness. And then he couldn't experience it. So he's like moving around a little bit, trying to find it. And I would just say, like, when you find this, treasure it, because it's not necessarily happening everywhere. When you find it, really treasure that active relatedness. And then, when you're in an active relatedness scenario, you know what happens? You begin to experience a greater measure of Christ than is possible with separate individuals. And then you just have that experience of like, wow, I got like more, I have more. I have more Christ. And then it's not like 2 + 2 is 4, but it's maybe 2 with 2 is maybe 16 or something, and then you just realize like, well, I can really go on because I'm connected. I'm in an active relationship with other believers. And then, we could pray together, we could read the Bible together, we could pursue the Lord together. And there's something about that you touch the house. And as Sparks says here, it's an active relatedness. So if you ask me, Rex, am I still the house if I am not in an active relationship, an active relatedness with other believers? And I would have to say, yes, that's biblical. Yes, yes. But are you really experiencing the fullness? I would have to say, no. And so it's really good to like aim for that active relationship. And then the household means you belong. The active relatedness means you're the house. And then, and so, it's interesting to you look at even these verses and just think about that active relatedness. Like in this Galatians 6:10, it's like, so then while we have opportunity, let us do good to all people. I encourage you, if you see an older woman crossing the street with a lot of groceries, try to help her. You should do good. Do good for her. But especially to those who are of the household of the faith. And now just look at this verse and think active relatedness. Like, oh yeah, there's a household, and you know what I can do to that household? I can especially do good to them. And then it's really not a bad thing to think about, like, I know this sister, I know that sister, I know that brother, I know that brother. How could I just do good for them? How could I just do good for them? How could I do something to make their lives with the Lord like better? Now, some people hang out in the household waiting for people to do things for them. But that's not what the verse says. It doesn't say, so then while we have opportunity, let us like receive what people will do for us. And especially let's hang out at the household so we get all of our needs met. It just doesn't say that. It doesn't say that. It's like, no, you try to look for opportunity to do good for a person of the household of the faith. And then you just realize, like, wow, it's like I have a supply. I really have a greater supply, and we're doing something that is like, it's beyond. Okay, this thought of active relatedness with the household, with the house, it also is carried through in these this Hebrews verse and also the First Peter verse. And I want to like just try to get this across. Look at this. Christ was faithful as a son over his house. And then look at this conditional phrase, whose house we are. That's very good. Whose house we are. If the word says if, we hold fast our confidence and the boast of our hope firm until the end. So, if you would say, like, Rex, are you saying, like, if we don't hold fast our confidence and the boast of our hope firm until the end, we're not his house? I'm just saying, I would not, I don't know. But I do know that it does say we're his house if we hold fast that confidence and the boast of our hope just firm until the end. One time, a brother asked another brother, hey, this brother is leaving like he's moving. The Lord is bringing him to another area. So do you want to like do more, like to kind of fill in the hole that's left by that brother? And then we could pray more, we could visit the saints more, we could whatever. And then the brother was like, you know what? I really like making money. I just want to make as much money as possible. And then, okay, is he still a brother? Yeah, of course. But there's just not that, like, if I just hold fast my confidence, and I hold fast the boast of our hope. And I really have that feeling like, oh, I'm just hoping in the Lord. I'm really hoping I see Christ in us, the hope of glory. And I realize we're going that way. And I'm kind of fighting for this together. And then you know what? There's a feeling among those two brothers. We're the house. We are the house. Yeah. What it's active. It's active relationship. And that was the quote by T. Austin Sparks, active relatedness. And I'm not sure if he was thinking about this verse or not, but oh my goodness, it fits so much. It fits so well. like the more you're like, you know what? I have a confidence or a confession. I have a confession. Jesus is my Lord and Savior, and I am living for him. And you know what? I have like a boast, and I'm boasting, and I'm hoping that one day the Christ in me is the hope of glory, and that will be manifested. And I would like to see all kinds of people experience that same thing. And then, hey, wait a minute, you do the same thing. And then, when we're together, we just feel like, hey, we're the house. We're the house. And then, in that active kind of relationship, then God could be like, I'm at home right there. I'm at home right now, there. Christ was faithful as a son over his house. That's over the people. And then we're that house if we hold fast that confidence. And then you just realize, oh, this is a greater realization of his house comes with a greater, holding fast to that confession or confidence and a greater boast of that hope. First Peter also says something about like you're in a house and you're really like it's about the priesthood. You also as living stones. So you're a living stone. Just think about like you're that stone, and then you're being built up as a spiritual house. And so you're a stone being built up as a spiritual house. And so you could say like, well, do we belong? Of course you belong. You're members of you're of the household. But then do we also make up like a wall or a doorway or something else, whatever kind of image you want to have of this spiritual house made of living stones. It's kind of like, not like a physical thing, but it's like a spiritual house made of living stone. And then look at the verse, for a holy priesthood, to offer up spiritual sacrifices acceptable to God through Jesus Christ. And so it's like, the more you like participate in that spiritual priesthood, in that holy priesthood, which is like the goal, the privilege of every New Testament believer's participation in this holy priesthood. And a holy priesthood, what do? They offer up spiritual sacrifices. And you just, and that could be like praise, it could be our finances, it could be our bodies, it could be unbelievers who receive the gospel through us and are presented to God as an offering, a sweet smelling savor. It's just, there's something there when you're really active, you just feel like I'm in God's house. I am God's house. I am God's house. And it's a really well, I mean, maybe you could say like it's trippy. It's trippy. I don't know what kind of word is that. Like it's just trippy. You're like I was an individual Christian, and I was like reading the Bible, good. I was like trying to be faithful to the Lord, good. Trying to have like a morally pure life, that's good. But then I became with another person, and there was an active relatedness. And then we were being the priesthood, and now we are a spiritual house. And the measure of Christ, the experience of Christ, the knowledge of Christ has so many more dimensions. And then, yeah, it just makes sense that the spiritual house, a son, or whose house we are, if we hold fast that confession. It's like, yeah, it's kind of like it's conditional. It makes sense, because the more you're pursuing the Lord, and the more you're together with the other brothers and sisters pursuing the Lord and going forward, you just have a sense like God is dwelling here. This is that house. Okay, what goes on in that household? What goes on in the household? And I like to kind of, the rest of the I think the rest of this is yeah. Yeah, the rest of it goes fast. And so I kind of have like just one more point. And Jesus gives this it's like a parable or kind of a parable or warning, or maybe he's speaking in plain words, actually. Therefore, be on the alert, for you don't know which day your Lord is coming. So the Lord may be coming tomorrow. I don't know. I don't know. We don't know which day. He could be coming September 21st, 2029. He could come then. You don't know which day. And I'm not making any prediction, but be sure of this. If the head of his house had known at what time of the night the thief was coming, he would not have, well, he would have been on the alert and would not have allowed his house to be broken into. So, in other words, like if you have a house and you know the thief is coming at 2 a.m., you know what you're going to do? You're going to be awake at 2 a.m. and just watching. Okay, same thing for when the Lord comes. You should just be ready. Just be ready. You don't know the day, but you need to be ready. And then for this reason, this is verse 44, you also must be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an hour when you do not think he will. So you don't know the day. You don't know the hour. Who then is the faithful and sensible slave whom his master put in charge of his household? There it is. To give them their food at the proper time. Blessed is that slave whom his master finds so doing when he comes. Look at this. Truly, I say to you that he will put him in charge of all his possessions. But then I'll just read this, like this is the contrast, and then we'll talk about the good side. But if that evil slave says in his heart, my master's not coming for a long time, and begins to beat his fellow slaves and eat and drink with the drunkards, the master of that slave will come on a day when he does not expect it, at an hour which he does not know, and will cut him in pieces and assign him a place with the hypocrites. In that place, there will be the weeping and gnashing of teeth. And let me tell you, we don't want to go there. You know why you have weeping and gnashing of teeth? And then there's a lot of people argue a lot about what is this, but you know what that means? Regret. Just think about that. Regret. If you gnash your teeth, wish, just regret. Think of the regret. And then, wouldn't that be great? When the Lord comes, okay, let me see. How about this? What if the Lord comes and interrupts your Bible study with a new Christian? Well, what if he comes and just like interrupts, and then you're like, Jesus, come on, I'm just reading Psalm 84. Can you just wait just a little bit and then we'll just finish the verse? Okay, I don't think anyone's going to do that, but I think you get my point. When the Lord's coming, he's like, and then you're like, I just want to finish Psalm 84 with this brother because, or the Lord's coming back and you're like, you're with another sister and you're like praying for somebody. And then you're like, oh, Lord, can you just wait just a little bit more? Because we feel like we're just about broken through with this prayer. We just about broke through with this prayer. Or, then there's something there when you just like, the master comes and finds his slave doing that. And then the Lord will just say like, I'll put him in charge of all my possessions. And what a great aspiration. Now, does this mean like I'm encouraging everyone to quit your job, stop studying, and just have Bible studies with everyone 24/7? No, but you could be at your job and then you just like you're thinking this. You're thinking this. I am a servant of the Lord who gives food at the proper time, and I also have a job. Isn't that very different than like I am a person with a job, and then sometimes I try to give food to people? It's just different. It's different. You're of different priorities. It's like, you know what my life is like. I'd like to give food to the household, and that's what I want to do. What happens in that household, and how can you really, experience the household? You know what you have to do? You have to learn how to give food at the proper time. And then you shouldn't think like, oh, only like a few people give food to the household at the proper time. No, no, no. Just think everyone, everyone needs to learn to give food at the proper time. So I would just encourage everyone to have this experience, and think about like, who in the household am I giving food to? Who? Who? And you could even like write down their names. Like, who am I giving food to? And again, I'd like to emphasize how active household is in the New Testament. We talked about like the Galatians 6 10, like, look, seek to do good for all men, but especially of those of the household of the faith. So how do you experience a household? Try to do good for them. How do you experience a household here? Look to try to give people food. And then, and I can't think of like, there is like physical food, that side of things. And that's a great thing. Like, maybe you will give a lot of people like physical food, like cook meals for them, or even, give them food in another way. I'm not against that, but I'm really thinking about like spiritual food. Can you give somebody spiritual food? And that might be something like, in the Bible. And can you develop that? And then you just think about like, that's the household. That's the household. All the people in the household are giving food at the proper time. And then you just realize the health of the church. The health of the church is really strong when all the people in the household are giving food at the proper time. And and it's not always that easy to give food to people. And I encourage you, try it. Maybe you say, can I read the Bible with you? Can we read the Bible together? And then you try to read the Bible with people. And then they might say, like, I don't really want to do that. And they're like, okay, you want to maybe get together and pray? Maybe we just pray on the phone. And then they might say, like, yeah, that's pretty good. We could do that for 5 minutes. And then you're just like, okay, this week I had 5 minutes where I gave food to that person because we prayed together. Or this week we spent 1 hour reading the Bible together, and then I gave that person food. And then, a parent will know sometimes it's not easy to give their kids food. Like, that's why, you have to like, sometimes you have to make the food, like cut it into the shape of like an animal, or cut it into the shape of like a little star, or you have to like go with the spoon, like an airplane, and then you put the spoon in their mouth. And okay, that's what a parent of a toddler does. And then, sometimes they even just run around. I remember my wife one time saying, to one of my children, you have to eat vegetables. Did you eat fruit? Did you eat fruit? Did you eat fruit? And then, and then this is just like, yeah, it's not that easy to feed people, but you try to give them food. And then it's also at the proper time. It's like, we were talking about somebody today, and it's just like, you know what? I think that person might just have to like go through this. They might just have to go through this. And then we're all thinking like, oh, I think they made a bad decision. I think they made a bad decision. And then, well, you can tell them, I think you made a bad decision. And then, okay, you try that next time and let me know how it works when you tell somebody, I think you made a bad decision. Sometimes it's just like, it's just too late. Okay, then there might be like a time period where you have to wait, and then all of a sudden they're open and hungry, and then bang, there, you got to do it. Proper time, proper time. And so, these quotes, one's from Ellicott, one's from Pulpit. It may be the spiritual milk that's like a very, very, very easy way to it's a very simple thing. Maybe just read some of the Gospels. That might be spiritual milk. Or it may be the strong meat or solid food. Maybe you really get into the book of Ephesians or something in Revelation or something in, there's we want to talk about the kingdom. This is solid food. There's an art, as it were, of spiritual dietetics, which requires tact and discernment as well as faithfulness. I love this quote. The wise servant will seek to discover not only the right kind of food, but the right season for giving it. Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. What I'm describing could be just your whole life. I'm an artist in spiritual dietetics. It sounds like some kind of movie or something. Or I don't know what is a spiritual dietetics, but I get it. It's like giving people spiritual food. And then it's like, I want to learn how to give you the right food at the right time, at the right time. So the steward of the mysteries of Christ have to feed his flock with spiritual food, with the word and sacraments, and to do this wisely and discreetly, according to the capacity, advancement, and circumstances of each recipient. I like to give people a challenge, and if you hang around me, I might give you a challenge. You should follow the life of the Apostle Paul through the New Testament. And then that's a challenge. And then, that's not easy. And, there are books like this thick written about that. And then that's a certain kind of spiritual food. But then I was with this other person one time and I was like, okay, I'm going to talk about the Paul thing. And then I just realized, no. That's not time for that. You know what this person needs to do? They need to finish the New Testament. Just need to finish reading it. And so you just have to think about what's their capacity, what's their advancement, what's their circumstances, and then to dispense that food, And okay, so I hope we could all be this way, and you realize household of God is I belong, and then what else is house of God? It's I'm actively in relationship. And then if you are that way, you're just kind of experiencing God's house. And then I just want to read a bunch of verses at the end. And I don't really have all I have is the church life is great. The church life is great. Okay, listen to this. This is Jesus. While he was still speaking to the crowd, behold, his mother and brothers were standing outside, seeking to speak to him. And then someone said to him, behold, your mother and your brothers are standing outside, seeking to speak to you. And then listen to this. Jesus answered the one who was telling him and said, who is my mother and who are my brothers? Oh, did he say that? That's Mary. That's Mary. And that's James. Okay. And then stretching out his hand toward his disciples, he said, behold, my mother and my brothers. For whoever does the will of my Father who is in heaven, he is my brother and sister and mother. Isn't that really fascinating? He's looking at his disciples. And then maybe Peter was like, I'm his mom. I'm his mom. I don't know. I don't know what that would be. but he just stretches out to his disciples these are my mother and my brothers, my sisters. And then it's interesting because Jesus even mentions you'll get a lot of these. Truly I say to you, there's no one who has left house or brothers or sisters or mother or father or children or farms for my sake and for the gospel's sake. But look, carefully read this next verse. He will receive 100 times as much now in the present age. Now, in the present age. Houses and brothers and sisters and mothers and children and farms. Okay, so let me act out this verse. I left my mom and my brother, and then I come into the household of God, and you know what I have? I have 100 moms. I have 100 moms. Actually, there are some moms on this Zoom call. I could list them. Some of my moms are on this Zoom call. Some of my moms are on this Zoom call. And I think you know who you are. And my brothers are on the Zoom calls, and my sisters are on the Zoom calls, and my children are on the Zoom call. And it's just like, and then in this age. So you know what a believer should be like? You come to the church life and you're like, I got tons of moms, and then I got tons of brothers, and I got tons of children, and then houses. Oh my goodness, I have so many houses. I could go over to Dan Rising's house. I could go over to Judy Wong's house. I could go over to Gad's house. I could go over to Peter Milan's house. I could go over to a bunch of people's houses. And you know what? Those are my houses. Why? Jesus said it. And then you gotta like don't spend too much time over there to annoy them, but you just have a thought like, there's just so much here. Like, and why? Because we're members of the household. You belong. You belong. You just belong. Okay, so then in the New Testament, it kind of follows through. Paul tells Timothy, don't rebuke an older man. But you know what you should do? You should just appeal to him as a father. Think of him as a father. Like there's an older man in the church, like, you're my father, and I just like appeal to you. Younger men as you're just my brothers. Older women as mothers, and younger women as sisters in all purity. And then you just realize, like, oh yeah, I just my house, the household is actually full of relatives. So Paul writes to the Philemon, Paul, a prisoner of Christ Jesus, and Timothy, our brother, to Philemon, our beloved brother and fellow worker, and to Apphia, our sister, and to Archippus, our fellow soldier, and to the church in your house. Like our beloved brother, our sister. And you look at the church, it's just like full of those kinds of things. And so I like Romans 16 is a great chapter. It's a whole long list of names, but it just shows how related Paul is. He was in active relationship with these people. And so, he just laundry lists all the people in Rome that he knew and he was related to. So I just underlined a few things, like, look, hey, those are my fellow workers. Paul could say, I'm in active relationship with them, and we are working together, and we experience what it is to be the house of God. And then the church that's in their house, what a great, just a sweet statement, and then my beloved, these are just my lovely people, my kinsmen, my fellow prisoners. And then finally, down to verse 13, greet Rufus, a choice man in the Lord. And then look at this, also his mother and mine. I don't think Rufus was his brother. but Paul's like, yeah, that Rufus's mom, she cooked great. She cooked great. And then when I was there, I ate it too. And I was like, Ma, hey Ma, how are you? Ma, thank you. Well, this is the household of God. So number one emphasizes belonging. Household emphasizes belonging. And then it's kind of related to house, which is like function. And then the more you are actively participating in that relationship, you have active relationship, the more you realize there's a fullness of Christ in that. And that active relationship is like holding fast to confession. It's like exercise of the priesthood. And then you just realize, like, giving food is such a big deal in that whole thing. It's just like a lot of food being transpired or being dispensed. And then you just are in a place where this is your family. This is your family. This is your real family. Why? They are doing the will of the Lord. And then you can taste that and share with many more brothers, fathers, sisters, and even mothers. And so praise the Lord for the household. Do you know what the household means? You belong. You're no longer a stranger, an alien, but you are of God's household. You belong with the people of faith. So praise the Lord. How about I stop there? And then I think we can still have like